you're probably throwing out that. Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we were with Patrick McCullough, who have actually been dying to meet for some time. It's good to meet you, man.
Thanks, man. We're happy we got together.
Yeah. So, Patrick is running for mayor of Oakland, and first, what made you decide to throw your hat in the ring?
Well, because it's been a continuation of how I view things for several years, maybe 20 years almost, that I've lived in Oakland, is that this city seems to be ran by an elite, and the cliques seem to just be preoccupied with making themselves satisfied. There's just so much clubbiness that goes on that when problems happen, they seem to be reticent to point them out. We don't hear of any whistleblowers in our government because everybody is pretty much like go along, get along to
go along to get along.
Yeah, there you go. It pretty much you don't tell on me and I won't tell on you. Mm-hmm. And I see these as one of the reasons why we have these continuing problems here, because people are afraid to address the real deep problems to maybe make people unhappy when they discuss these things, just temporarily unhappy, because I think once you've discussed it a while, people will come to a realization that perhaps they were doing wrong and they see a way that they can do right, and they'll take that rather than to just keep attacking the person who once criticized them for their past behavior. For me, I've actually assiduously avoided being a part of these cliques or clubs. I've had invites, but I've just turned them down because, for one, it seems kind of corrupting to me that these same people, almost it's like a musical chairs. They take turns, or their relatives or their friends take their turns running things. Mm-hmm. And it would be fine if they ran it and it was successful. But I'm seeing these same problems coming up from the same group. So here I am, independent of all these groups, knowing that that's what's needed.
Was there an aha moment where you just said, doggone it, I'm going to put my $300 down and file my papers and run?
Well, actually, I'm not sure I ever put the $300 down, but I know I put the papers.
Are you officially filed?
I'm officially in.
Yeah, okay,
I'm deep in. In fact, this is something that most of the media has managed to avoid discussing. Mm-hmm. But while some of the candidates were talking to their other friends in their clubs and their cliques, trying to decide if they had what they felt was necessary support to run, I looked at the facts and decided to do it. And I did it. I think I was probably the first candidate to actually file the papers other than the mayor of Quan.
Right.
So all these other folks who had to, get a Ouija board or whatever it was it'd take for them to decide to get in the race, I didn't have to wait on that.
Oh, excuse me. Mayor Quan says she's not officially announced she's running yet.
Oh.
That's her staffers saying that, but she's got a website that says reelect Mayor Quan. I'm just saying.
And I thought
it's a head fake.
Seen a couple of well, you can fake yourself out. It seems like that. I saw in a couple of articles that she had actually been a candidate, but if she's not, it doesn't matter because I love to debate any of these people.
She's a candidate.
With support.
But so, tell me about the first time you ran for council, but more to that, you're actually known for an incident that happened, I believe, in 2005?
Yeah, in 2005. Of all the things that I've been involved in, I guess this is one that took the briefest period of time to occur, and it's the one thing that people tend to remember.
Right.
But it actually was a part of growth from my being in Oakland, dealing with these people in office who were ineffectual. So the incident that happened that I was forced into was really caused by these lousy politicians who'd been in office and hadn't addressed the problems that I was left to address. And basically they started out with safety in my neighborhood and directly in front of my house. It had been an open air drug market for many years. I don't know what their reasons were. I talked to practically everybody who's was a politician between 94 when I moved to Oakland and 2005 when this incident became the news. And I was just very disappointed in their reactions. Everything from, oh, well, that's so-and-so's district to, well, we won't get involved because that's their district. And so the problems that you see can be fixed. We won't try to fix them because that's, in this case, Jane Bruner's district was that. So, I was pretty much figured out that I got to take care of this stuff myself, the things that I can take care of. I can't do everything, which is one reason why I'm running for mayor, because as mayor I can do a lot of things that I can't do as just a regular black guy on the street. So my wife and I moved to our first home, our only home, in August of '94. Promptly found out that the neighborhood wasn't quite what the realtor had convinced it was. And but it was one of the things that we were willing to accept. My wife's from a big city, New York. I'm from Chicago, and we say, okay, great. We happen to move to an area where there's a lot of crime. Pretty much like what we were used to for much of our lives growing up. So we focused on the small things that we thought we could control. Like what happens directly in front of our house. The city's had these ordinances for some time now that you're required to maintain the sidewalks in front of your house. Somebody falls on a crack, you're likely to get sued if it was your fault the crack was there. So I figured, well, geez, if I'm responsible for the trash going on my sidewalk and the cracks in my sidewalk, then why should I be made to tolerate a trashy acting person standing on my sidewalk committing a crime? It seems like this should be the government's responsibility, much like the crack in the sidewalk should be, but since they're saying it's my responsibility, then I'll take responsibility and act responsibly. So we began by talking to people, like, hey guys, you shouldn't do this. This is bad for little kids walking by. They shouldn't see you guys doing this. And some of the guys were receptive to that and said, yeah, man, we're fine. In fact, the majority of the people, that was the response from them was, well, nobody complained about it before, but okay, we cool, and we're gone. And I thought, this is great. But over the course of years, I found that there was this one element that, hey, it didn't matter. They had no respect for me, what I wanted to accomplish, which is basically security in front of my house.
This is your property.
It's my house, Right. When I'm not at home, I want to make sure my wife can enter and exit without any
be
problems.
Safe, right.
But some of these folks felt like, hey, this is our streets. We own the streets. And it just seemed like such an odd thing to me because I was saying, wait a minute, I didn't know you could inherit a street, like, where's your deed, I paid for my deed, show me yours. So I just felt, well, okay, basically you have no your claim isn't legitimate. I know it's something that you're used to espousing, but I'm just not going for it. So I made a point of calling the police when I see something going on, and sometimes the cops would come, sometimes they would come a long time later, sometimes they wouldn't come at all for days. One time they came so long after the call, I really forgot why I called them. The guy says it had my address and they knew it was me who had called, and I just couldn't remember just what the particular incident was because a couple of others had happened in the interim. So basically I find myself fighting the city first. There was a traffic barrier that was installed at the end of the block after next door neighbor's son had been killed at the end of the street.
Wow.
Yeah, that happened just before
next door neighbor's son.
Yeah, his oldest son was killed in '93 at the intersection of 59th and Telegraph. And so they got this traffic barrier installed. It's supposed to have been there forever, I thought. But at some point, they came out with a notice saying that the barrier was going to be removed. And I said, well, this is ridiculous. We got one thing that stops some of the problem.
Right.
How can you say this is going to be removed? And again, I ran into this government and from the city councilman's office, councilwoman's office, and others in city government. They said, well, this is put up on a temporary basis and that time period is gone. So, I wasn't going for it. My wife and I had just become lawyers. You know, just graduated, went past the bar just before we got the house.
What kind of law do you practice?
Actually, poverty law.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any law that keeps me in poverty is the law I practice. I don't make a dime doing anything. I haven't had a paying client for a while. I do things for favors for friends, but my main income is derived from a completely different source.
Oh, what is that?
I'm an electronics technician.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I have been for a while. You know, I grew up. Barney on I Spy was my idol. You know,
Oh, is that right?
Mission Impossible. I'm sorry.
Right.
So I said I want to be like that guy. I want to know what he knows. So I learned electronics, and still not hiding out in elevators, but I can do a lot of stuff. So when they told us that there was this legal reason why this barrier had to be removed, we researched and found that they were wrong. And we went back and forth with them, but eventually we had to sue the city 3 times. Each time we sued, we halted their removing the barrier. And then the city fell in this thing of, well, we're just going to let it go by neglect. We just won't take care of it, you know. So it got banged up, and I went out and bought cement, and a couple of times rebuilt it myself. And then finally, right after that second rebuild, the city said, okay, we'll settle this latest lawsuit of yours and make it permanent. So it's been permanent. Well, that worked great for the traffic barrier, but what it did, it further angered people who were opposed to us wanting to make this place safer. So we got some static from some of the rabble-rousers. You know, they come to meetings, smelling up the place, cussing up the place, and of course pointing fingers at me. So like I said, I'm from Chicago, you know, and usually when somebody wants to give me a hard time, I think of how I can give them a harder time. It's just a natural response to me. So, you know, I think they saw that I wasn't going to be intimidated, and they shifted tactics. Then it became just straight out threats, you know. People were threatening to do stuff. So I said, well,
were these gang members?
Yeah, well, you know, some were gang members. Yeah, I had some direct threats from some known gang members and people who call themselves leaders of the gang, but also from some of the crowd on the left. You know, where's this?
Are you Republican?
Well, you know, it's funny. I've been Republican, I've been Democrat, I've been Peace and Freedom Party for longer than the other two. But I've been independent most of my life, and that's where I am at now. And I really don't see wanting to join a political party. They're too partisan. You know, and I'm looking at this isn't a Republican city or a Democratic city. This is a city of people, you know, with different views on things. And I don't like these labels. It's almost like it's another way of pigeonholing people and saying, well, you're not important because you're this or you're that, or you belong to this or that group.
So how did it get to the point where you shot a man in your yard? Or a group? I was standing in my yard. He was in another property when he got shot. But yeah, what happened this particular day was it was a quiet February. It was drizzling, and I had just come home from work and had been watching Power Rangers with my son for about half an hour. And my wife says, hey, let's have crab tonight. So I was heading over to 12th Street to go and buy some crab, you know, and I was on call from my job. You know, every once in a while, every few weeks or so, I have to do a standby where I'm the on-call person. Sure. Yeah.
So, I said, okay, I had a couple of car keys in my hand. I'd go move the city car. I work for the city of Berkeley. I had to move that car so we can take my own personal car to go get the crab. So I looked outside the window, which is normal, you know, make sure I don't see anything too crazy. The street looks clear. So I picked up my stuff and went outside to go move the car. Now, this is in 2005. We've been living there for 11 years now, almost 11 years. And during that time, I had been warned by many, many people that I should be armed because some people don't like me, and they apparently had heard some of the threats. You know, confidential informants had told them about the threats. I guess some other people who didn't care they were, you know, being known, made threats, and you know, all these got reported to me. So after several years, I reluctantly began to carry a pistol every time I'd leave out of the door. So I had a small pistol with me. I had my keys, my phone, my wallet, everything the guy needs to go out and buy food in Oakland. So I went to the door, and as soon as I turned to lock the security gate, I turned around. I see this crowd of about maybe a dozen youngsters.
Wow.
Teens,
Not just one person, a dozen.
A dozen.
Wow.
It's pretty much just came out of nowhere. They weren't there when I was in the house picking up my goodies. So I looked at them and says, well, great, okay. I'm doing the math. They weren't here a minute ago. They look to be on their way someplace else. So, and they know me. We're not new to the neighborhood. So this should be a pretty simple encounter. They're going to keep going, and I'm going to get in my car, and never the two will meet.
Yeah.
But instead, one of them in the crowd says, well, there's a snitch, So I'm looking at this group of people, and I'm saying, great, okay, first place, I'm an adult, responsible adult, been an adult for a long time. I'm not really used to letting some punk say something to me, especially some punk who's of a certain age, because you're a child, okay? If you don't have or show respect for me initially, then I'm going to tell you why you should, if I can. And so I saw this guy, and I figured, well, geez, don't talk to me like that, and basically get the hell away from my house, and so he didn't like that. So he charged towards me, and you ever see this? What is it like? One of these old cartoons where somebody gets hit and they fly through the air.
Yeah.
That's what happened, The guy came towards me, swung. Like I say, I had my hands full.
Yeah.
I got a pistol tucked under my shoulder, and my hands full of keys and my wallet. Wasn't really ready to tussle with anybody, but when he hit me, he swung, and just a glancing blow.
Yeah.
So I hit him in the chest, and he flew like in a cartoon and almost knocked him off his feet. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, I've already verbally combated you. Okay, now I've physically combated you, and you've lost on both counts. You should be leaving me alone now. That's what I would have done. But instead, now the whole crowd starts throwing stuff at me. I got a big old yard-long stick thrown, and just barely missed me. Just glanced my shoulder, put a dent in the city car I was standing next to. It threw a couple of rocks, and I'm thinking, wow, I gotta watch these people. It's like an arc of them now, and just over to my right. So I'm watching them. I knew I had the immediate beef with this one guy, and then right in the midst of this guy goes, he's looking at a couple of other guys approaching from the Shattuck direction, and says, give me the pistol. Let me have the pistol. And it was like, whoa. It was like, how the light shines through a searchlight on a foggy night. It was like, of all the things, this is not what I wanted to hear.
Wow.
And I knew exactly what it meant.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. It wasn't like, give me the GAD or something that could have been confused.
Right. So
now, and I've had, some experiences. So immediately I'm looking to see where this gun is. And the two guys he was facing, about maybe 20 feet away, one of them lifts up his jersey, and there in his waistband is his pistol. So I'm thinking,
jeez Louise.
You're right. Here I am wanting to go get crab. I thought the hardest problem would be finding crabs with all the legs, but instead I got to deal with this life and death situation.
Right.
And right then I was deciding, okay, I'm not a martyr. I plan on surviving this encounter. So I focused on the guy with the gun. I was really prepared to shoot him. But for some reason, and I know what the reason is now, is that he wasn't the real super threat. He was a threat, but he wasn't the worst threat. The worst threat was the guy asking for the gun. And now he's right next to the guy with it. And as soon as I was about to shoot the guy with the gun. Well, the guy who's doing all the talking and combating with me puts his hand on it, and that's when I fired, and ended his ability to shoot me.
Right.
So
did he die?
No, he didn't die. No. fortunately.
Right.
I mean, we're glad that he didn't die. I don't even think he's got any debilitating injury from it.
And the police came, and what happened?
Oh yeah. Well, it's a funny thing when the cops came because the cops who I knew, all the cops, because I'm calling them all the time. The guy goes, well, later, a few minutes after things cooled down, he says, "Yeah, we were just over at this nightclub around the corner, and they were apparently there, and they were surveilling some people left, and the undercover cops had left, so everybody was coming back. You know, Lookout had told them coast is clear, so they were going back to the Shattuck. And I just happened to come out. The timing was just wrong. You know, just another minute inside, we would have passed and not seen each other. But yeah, that was it.
Wow. So how did things change for you after that? They left you alone, and
no.
Was that your impetus for running for office? Because first you ran against Bruner, right?
Yeah, well,
and for District 1 Council.
Well, the thing with that was, it was pretty much the response that I got after shooting. It was like, okay, this thing came to a real head. Okay, right? It's just like, you know, I've been warning you people for a long time that you're doing a lousy job. You aren't communicating with these people. You aren't getting them to change their behavior. You're leaving it for us to fend for ourselves. So. Then it came to where I went to the city council immediately after the shooting and basically says, hey, you know, I'm sure you folks have caught the news. I'm here to tell you, you got to get your act together because things like this are happening because you're not doing what you're supposed to do. And De La Fuente was the Ignacio was the president, I think, at the time, or at least that night, and he was the only person to say anything, which was, you know, I still respect him for that, because he just says, hey, you know, we kind of constrained in what we can say, and I realized it wasn't, and this is the other part of why I'm running for office. He was not constrained because the city attorney told him don't say anything because we will be involved in litigation. He was constrained because they didn't want to piss off some possible constituents. And I said, well, you know, that's not a reason not to say something. You got the facts right in your hand. If you don't act on them, then you're part of the problem. So I looked then as, well, I can't depend on these people on the council to ever get better, because if they don't start doing right after this incident, then they're immune to this type of impetus for change. So it was in 2008, and I said, okay, I would have ran for mayor then if I had really thought about it more. But I said, well, at the very least, I can run for Bruner's office because I know her, I know what she's doing, and you know, enough people around that I should be able to get enough people to vote me in. So it was nice, you know, I got a few thousand votes, but I didn't really change anything because the council hasn't changed, the government hasn't changed, the leadership hasn't changed. They're all the same, you know.
So let's talk. How, as mayor, would you change Oakland? In other words, what's your biggest issue?
Well, the biggest issue, I think, keeping Oakland's back is, of course, a leadership problem. And the one big problem with leadership, and the thing that I would do differently, is get people to trust my leadership, because I certainly don't trust leadership, and I think that's pretty much universal among almost everybody I talk to. Well, by showing people that I've, one, have the experience to know what's going on. You know, I've lived all parts of life. You know, I've been in some of the most exclusive and luxurious surroundings, and I've been where you smell the building before you enter it. You know, so I know it all, and I work for a living. None of these people seem to do anything more than pat each other on the back and give each other patronage jobs. So I think when people realize that, hey, here's a real person who works like us, suffers like us, wants what we want, is close to us in our living, says that, hey, I know what's important. I know how to talk to these people who are out making problems. I know how to talk to the people and how to get them to help, the ones who can help, have the resources, who maybe are either afraid or too confused or unsure if they want to devote their resources to helping the problems here. I see how a lot of things need to be coordinated, and I can do all that without this problem of dependence on the cliques and clubs that get people into offices.
How do we pay for more police on the street, or do you think we need more police on the street?
Well, we certainly need more police on the street, and I think it's just foolish to say that we don't because of some past problems or perceptions of past problems with the police. So yeah, one of the things, and this is part of what I can do that I don't think the other candidates can do. I can show people where the money's going and that it won't go anyplace else except for these specific things. Only now am I hearing some talk like this from some of the other candidates and from Mayor Kwan.
Is that to say you have a specific plan for the cops? Or?
Yeah, I have a few specific plans, but I don't want to say that this is something that the police are endorsing because there might be some things that. Well, one thing I know from the last election, police are basically looking to see who can win. Okay, so if they probably don't think I can win, so I'm not gonna really. I don't want to just hand the solutions over to somebody who they think can win.
Right.
If they can't figure them out for themselves and come up with
walk over here just a little bit. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Keep talking. Oh, keep talking.
Sorry, talk and walk at the same time.
No, it's easy. It's easy.
So what I want to do is and I know I can do, is convince people that I am real. I'm not one of these fake, phony, made-up people. I understand what's going on. I've got the same or better education than any of the other candidates. I mean, that doesn't come out, I mean, I remember when I got my bachelor's degree, I had enough to get 2 bachelor's degrees, but I decided I wanted to go to law school instead of collect paper. So I see these other folks who say, oh, well, I'm on this and that, I'm doing this and that. So, all these things you're touting as your experience are the same things that make people distrustful. So, yeah, you've been on these boards and you've been in these offices. But what did you do when you were there? When the bad things were happening, why didn't you tell the rest of the citizens what was going on?
So how do you feel about, for example, some of the programs like Operation Ceasefire? Do you think those have worked? Or
They're okay, but the only thing is Oakland has a tendency to want to put all their eggs in one basket and wait for that basket to hatch and then say, oh, it didn't hatch the way we thought it would. Let's look for another basket of eggs. All these things have a place, but they need to be managed well. And the ceasefires, some of that's good, but the other side of it is, and this is the thing that I'm wondering just how much success they're really having. I don't see any of these guys.
Over here. Follow me.
I don't see any of these guys got any jobs. I mean, so great. I understand that now. The deal is it here or there?
Yeah, it's just there. Yeah.
I understand that there's going to talk to them as I would.
Sure.
I don't know how much of it they're going to take in, but at some point they've got to offer them an alternative to the life they've been leading. Well, it's a problem for all the youth in Oakland. They've been doing all this talk for years. The best I ever hear them come up with is, oh, well, we're trying to go and hire 80 more for our summer jobs programs. Well, these people need jobs, not just the youth, but the adults who made the youths, and maybe even their parents need jobs, and they just aren't being produced here. And I see a lot of money coming into Oakland. I remember when Joe Deborah
who died.
Right, and I'm sorry.
About 2 months ago, I think.
Unfortunately, because I'm not a part of anybody's club, I didn't know until he had passed.
Yeah, I know his son. So
he's a wonderful guy, and he's one of the people who I wish would have been more listened to, because he said, hey, look, we got to have a set aside for these jobs. Why aren't we having our tax money, sometimes directly, that we pay into these things? We give these incentives, we give people prime real estate, and we don't get the jobs for the people who are living here. And this has been going on for at least the 20 years that I've been in Oakland.
So the Warriors, the A's, and the Raiders in a new stadium. What do you think about the retention of our sports teams, and how do we pay for it, your view?
Well, I wonder why they've had such a hard time. I know when Jerry Brown was the mayor, he had a big falling out with Bob about the placing the thing at the Port of Oakland. And I actually agree with him. I thought, man, this would be ideal. San Francisco's got theirs on that side. I used to live right near where the stadium is now. I live in Bayside Village when that was built. And I saw how that whole neighborhood is just transformed now. It's like its own part of the city that's really developed. And if you've been there 10 years ago, it was none of that was there. You know, maybe Bayside Village was there, but you know, there was no other development. That can happen in Oakland, but we've got to have a place where people will feel comfortable going to, and they've also got to feel comfortable in transit. So yeah, fine, we can have it out in the middle of nowhere, but you gotta make it easy for people to do there. If you want to go and increase revenue, then you gotta have other things there besides just the park. Now the problem with the Coliseum site is that there's a lot of work needs to be done there, and you have this image that it's a dangerous part of town.
But land use aside, which is kind of an easy thing, how do we pay for it?
How do you pay for it?
Yeah, and you're as mayor, how do you want that to be paid for?
The main thing should be paid for is by the owner. I mean, it's like, or put it like this, unless we are going to become part owner of the team and its revenue, then the owner should be the one who pays the lion's share of that, because he'll be appreciating the gains. But we will appreciate gains also, but all these things can be negotiated. And I don't know, see, I can't negotiate with Mr. Wolf. I can't.
You're the mayor, of course you can.
Well, as a mayor, I will. But now I can't. And that's the problem, is I don't know what negotiations they've had. They seem to have been lousy because we don't have anything. All we got is a guy saying he's going to leave. Maybe I'll stay if these things happen, but I don't see them happening. And, you know, we've got the potential of losing the teams. And Warriors are just about out of here. You know, the A's, I think, even though he's saying, you know, I'll go, he doesn't want to go. He wants to, I mean, this is A's home. This is the place that the team flourished during his time in Oakland. So
but as mayor, do you have a plan that you want, or what do you want to see happen if you were the mayor?
Well, I want to see the team stay here. I don't think we're going to have an excellent fit at the Coliseum. I just don't. So we'll see what happens after that.
What's your message for the people of Oakland? Why should they support you rather than anybody else?
Well, because number one, I'm real. I'm not one of the phony, made-up people. I live like all the other people I see around me live. I'm very familiar with all these things. I'm at least as qualified in all aspects as any of the other people running. And they need to change, because the way they've been going is just helps to keep things the way they are. There hasn't been enough change.
Are you raising funds? How can people contact you if they want to help?
Well, now that you
got no website, dude. What's going on?
Now that you see that I'm about as media savvy as Fred Flintstone, you know,
at least you're honest about it.
You know, I can't do it all. And hopefully, you know, maybe somebody will say, yeah, give me some money for some billboards. One thing I don't want to do is to spend money sending stuff to people's houses. You know, I mean, to me, let folks do that, you know, but I'm not interested in doing that. I'm hoping that some.
How do they contact you then?
How they contact me is to just find me on the internet.
That's hard to do.
Phone number's listed.
It's not easily.
Really, for you too?
Yeah. It's not easy.
For you, it'd be really fast. Well,
so you have an opportunity here. Tell them. This is a camera. Talk.
Camera, what you can do is to call me at my office number, 655-8013. Email me, patforoakland@gmail.com, and stand by. At some point, I'll get some help. I'll have a website again, but you can find a lot of information about me already. That's what I really pretty much want people to do. I really don't want their money. What I want is their vote. And if you want to send me money, instead of sending me the money, just send a message to a friend of yours and convince them to vote for me. It would be much better.
Hey, thanks a lot, man.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, cool, definitely.